Morning, America. I'm Charles Gibson.
And I'm John Lennon. It is Wednesday, November 17th. Well, the battle lines have been drawn. Sides have been taken, deals have been cut, and later today, Congress finally votes on NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. In a few minutes, we will get some last-minute thoughts on the plan, as well as a nuts-and-bolts explanation of what this will all mean to you if it does pass.
Spencer?
Well, we got some upheavals in nature again today. Charlie, actually starting with yesterday morning, a tornado touched down near downtown Houston, Texas, causing property damage and injuring several people. The system that produced those storms will today produce violent thunderstorms in the southeastern U.S., and we'll tell you more about this coming up in this half hour.
We're also going to follow up this morning with Michael Gillen, who's out in Parkfield, California, on the earthquake threat there. And in our next half hour, you're going to meet a new special correspondent on Good Morning America, one who is very big. Many people find him very cute, and he is very yellow. We'll explain, but right now let's get to Morton Dean with the news. Mort?
Right, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. It's NAFTA Day in the House of Representatives. The latest ABC News head count shows President Clinton now has 213 of the 218 votes he needs to get the trade deal through the House today. It all comes down to how 28 still undecided House members will decide to vote. There's been a lot of trading going on as the vote nears for the trade agreement. ABC's Ann Compton has the story.
The balance seemed to tip at midday, especially when several Florida members emerged from a huddle to announce they are satisfied with the president's commitment to protect citrus and tomatoes grown in their state.
They have gone more miles in order to satisfy the concerns of Florida agriculture than anyone else has. If you ask for a number of things and you get most all that you asked for, well, then you certainly can't turn your back.
President Clinton defended his lobbying tactic of winning votes by assuring dozens of members that he will take care of their local concerns.
When they come to see me, they want to know things like, is this job training package going to be really adequate? Those are the kinds of substantive questions that we've been asked to hammer out and work through and to give assurances on. I think that is the job of a member of Congress. I don't feel badly about that at all.
The political cover will even extend to next year's congressional campaigns. President Clinton promised in writing to send thank you letters to every member who votes his way, letters that warn against the inappropriateness of using NAFTA as a weapon against Republicans or Democrats next fall. It is clear now in the vote count that those supporting the president and NAFTA have moved ahead in numbers of those who are opposed, and right now the White House is trying not to be overconfident. Mort?
And Mr. Perot has been hard at work on the Hill, as well as organized labor and many other groups.
The forces against NAFTA are still working very, very hard. They see some erosion in their support. And I think when it comes to Ross Perot, many of his people on the Hill trying to get into that Florida meeting yesterday to counter the weight of the president's arguments, they have found it tough going ever since that debate that Perot had with Vice President Gore. He is not as popular a figure on Capitol Hill or as frightening a one as he once was.
And briefly, Ann, the bill still has to go to the Senate.
It does, but the president's not worried about the Senate. He's always thought that he probably has the support for NAFTA in the Senate. So tonight's vote, running very late tonight, is the important one.
Okay, thank you. Ann Compton at the White House. The pro-NAFTA forces claim President Clinton's role as a world leader is riding on the outcome of today's vote. We get that part of the story from ABC's Barry Dunsmore.
In these final days, the White House found a solid pro-NAFTA argument.
The consequences of a defeat for NAFTA in the foreign policy arena would be really catastrophic.
The first setback would be felt here in Seattle, where Asian leaders are holding a summit this weekend. A defeated President Clinton would have a hard time persuading the Asians that the U.S. wants greater political and economic engagement with them. Next setback, relations with Mexico. After years of growing hostility to the U.S., President Salinas dramatically reversed that trend. But if NAFTA is defeated,
our carefully nurtured efforts to improve relations would be scuttled as a sense of rejection unquestionably will set in across the border. For the United States, that would be a self-inflicted setback of historic proportions.
Next, the negotiations on the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, known as GATT. The talks to expand world trade have been going on for years and now have a December 15th deadline. French farmers feel strongly enough about GATT to riot regularly against American pressure to cut agricultural subsidies. These subsidies are the major issue blocking a new agreement. For now, France is isolated, but if NAFTA is defeated, U.S. leverage will be severely weakened, and the new trade deal may die with major consequences.
Failure to conclude GATT means that the post-war system, as we have known it, is at an end. In the economic area which counts, this would be catastrophic.
Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, Washington.
Today it's NAFTA. Tomorrow another volatile subject comes up for consideration in the House. It's a bill that would make acts of violence outside abortion clinics federal crimes. Yesterday the Senate agreed to do just that by more than a 2-to-1 margin, 69 to 30. Critics complain the measure would limit free speech. The bill's sponsor, Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy, disagreed.
This legislation will not penalize a point of view. It will not penalize conduct expressing that point of view in nonviolent, non-obstructive ways. The only conduct it prohibits is violent or obstructive conduct that is far outside any constitutional protection.
Several anti-abortion lawmakers sided with the majority. They said the cause does not justify any act of violence outside abortion clinics. A court ruling against the Pentagon's policy on gays in the military. A federal appeals court told the Navy yesterday it has given Joseph Stefan a diploma and commissioned him as an officer. 6 years ago, Stefan was thrown out of the Naval Academy after he admitted he was gay. The court said that was unconstitutional. In Somalia, the great chase for warlord Mohammed Farah Aidid has been called off. UN troops tried and failed to find him. U.S. Rangers tried and failed. UN reward money didn't work either. Last night, the UN Security Council voted to end the search. Instead, the UN says it will investigate attacks on its forces, attacks reportedly ordered by Aidid. And that's the news on the hour. Here are Joan and Spencer.
7 after, and what time for what kind of weather today?
All
Rainy,
kinds.
all kinds.
A little bit of
Everything
everything.
on that map,
We've got
right?
rain, snow, hail,
Yeah.
thunderstorms, warm weather, cold weather.
kinda messy.
You name it, we've got it here at Spencer's Bargain Basement. Let me show you what's going on here, Joan.
And I think this ad pretty much illustrates why it's stacked against workers and why workers are going to indicate to their members of Congress to vote no on this today. This is an ad that was in major trade publications in the U.S. by the Mexican government. It basically has a beleaguered-looking U.S. businessman and a caption that reads, "I can't find a good loyal worker for $1 an hour within 1,000 miles from here." It goes on to say, labor costs average under $1 an hour, including benefits. You could save $15,000 a year per worker if you come here. So call this number if you're interested. We've called. Corporations all over this country are looking forward to going down to Mexico and taking jobs, but more importantly even, lowering and putting pressure on wages of workers here in the United States so our standard of living goes down. That's not a good deal for the U.S. or for Mexican workers as well.
In just a few moments, I'm going to ask the Labor Secretary about some of those issues you just raised.
Sure.
But my suspicion is that he's going to say to me, look, sure, wages are lower in Mexico, but productivity in Mexico is about 1/8 of what it is for an American worker here. And if this were so certain that jobs gravitate to low-income areas, then workers would be fleeing out of California, fleeing out of Michigan, and going down to lower-wage states like Mississippi and Alabama. But it doesn't happen.
Well, it has happened, actually, and there's a fallacy in that argument as well, Charlie, and that is that Mexican workers have low productivity. They are, on the contrary, they're very productive workers. They're hard workers. In fact, what we are finding is major corporations leaving the United States, building facilities, modern facilities in Mexico, and their productivity is increasing at a rate that's approaching and even surpassing our productivity in some of our plants. A good example is the Hughes aircraft plant in Los Angeles. $17 an hour for electrical circuitry, moved down to Tijuana, took about 1,000 jobs with it. They pay $6.90 a day to those workers as opposed to $17 an hour in the U.S. and do some very sophisticated, productive work.
All right, vote comes tonight, but Congressman, you're still saying you've got the votes you think to defeat NAFTA?
I think the people are going to speak and call their congressmen and women, and we're going to be successful tonight. And we're going to do a new treaty that really protects workers.
All right, Congressman, thank you for being with us. Last-minute summation of the position against NAFTA. Joining us from the White House this morning to give the administration's pro-NAFTA view is Secretary of Labor Robert Reich. Mr. Secretary, good to have you with us.
Well, it's good morning, Charlie.
Why are you so sure American jobs won't go to Mexico the way the Congressman just talked about?
What we have to keep in mind is that Mexican tariffs against American goods are 2.5 times our tariffs. There's a big tariff wall, And yet, notwithstanding that wall, we are now exporting to them every year about $5.4 billion more than they are exporting back to us. And that's because their market is growing so fast. Now, if we get that tariff wall down, which NAFTA will provide, we're going to export them even more goods, and that means, in turn, even more American jobs. You see, trade is good for both sides. Yes, it's true that their wages are lower, but it's also true that we are much, much more productive.
Mr. Secretary, the congressman raised what is a critical issue with some. Even if there isn't a net loss of jobs, a net outflow of jobs to Mexico, this is going to put American workers more in competition with Mexican workers, and the Mexican wages are much lower. Therefore, there will be strong downward pressure on American wages.
Charlie, this is an advance on what we have right now. Right now, any American company, as the congressman said, can go right down there, put stuff together, send it back to the United States. That is the status quo. That's what we have right now. Right now, it is difficult to get our goods into Mexico. In fact, a lot of American companies go down to Mexico if they want to get into the Mexican market, because that's the cheapest and most efficient way of overcoming that huge Mexican tariff barrier and domestic content requirements that they want to sell to Mexico. You get that barrier down, you reduce the incentive for American companies to go down there, and again, you improve the situation. It is better than what we have right now.
Let me ask you about administration's strategy in recent days in order to win votes. The purpose of all this, obviously, is to eliminate taxes on imports. And yet, in order to win votes, a lot of people seeing the president promising to keep taxes on imports in industries that are critical to congressmen who are undecided. The deals apparently made in recent days on citrus, wheat, wine, beef. Is this become let's make a deal in effect?
No, in fact, the only side deals, the only side letters have been with regard to sugar and citrus. Those were long anticipated, long even before NAFTA. The administration, Mickey Cantor and the special trade representative, the U.S. trade representative, have been talking about this for many, many years, many months, I should say. There are no particular side deals. I have talked to members about helping them with training programs, but, you know, these are things that we want to do generally for all American workers. This is not picking out individual members.
The congressman was saying a moment ago they still had, he felt, the votes to defeat NAFTA. You have the votes to pass it?
I think the momentum is on our side. Yesterday, we had 17 members, in addition to all the members before, come out in favor of NAFTA. I think that we are going to win this. I don't want to be overly confident. And even after the House, let's remember, we still have to go to the Senate. But I believe that the American public and also the members of the House understand that our interests, nation's interests, and all of Americans' interests is in creating a trading sphere here in North America that is equal, if not greater, than the trading bloc in Europe and the one that's emerging in Asia. We need it. Everybody stands to gain.
Mr. Secretary, appreciate you being with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Charlie.
Joan?
All right, thank you, Charlie. Regardless of the outcome of today's NAFTA vote in the House, one thing is certain. While the agreement may be one of the most talked about issues in recent years, many Americans are really at a loss to explain exactly what it is. Never at a loss for words, our Money editor Tyler Matheson, also an executive editor at Money Magazine, joins us now to trade secrets on NAFTA. How you doing?
Good.
I think at this point most everyone would be able to tell you that NAFTA means, you know, what it stands for, the North American Free Trade Agreement. But what exactly is it? What will it do?
It's a treaty that, if it is passed today by the House of Representatives and then by the Senate, as of January 1, 1994, will begin to reduce all of the tariffs, which are really taxes on goods exports, among three countries: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. But since the United States has already had such a trade agreement with Canada since 1989, really the focus is on what happens between the U.S. and Mexico. So what it does is it means that, say, a U.S. auto manufacturer can ship autos and light trucks assembled here in the United States down to Mexico and avoid, over a period of 10 years, this thing begins to phase out, avoid the tariffs that today are about 20% on those cars, so that will increase production of cars over there.
Well, you just got through saying that we've already had this agreement with Canada, and I didn't see the big heated debate there, so why is it such a heated debate with Mexico?
Different kind of economy when we're talking about Mexico. Obviously, it is a developing economy, one that is right now only about 1/20th the size of the United States economy. Canada, on the other hand, also much smaller than the U.S. economy, but a more mature sort of industrialized economy. There are lower wage rates in Mexico, as we've just heard, and that is what has people sort of teeth on edge, worried about what the impact is going to be on jobs in the United States. So you're comparing two different kinds of economies.
And I can see how Mexico would win in this. But the question is, will the U.S. win?
Well, for example, as we just mentioned, the U.S. automakers are very strongly in favor of it because they think reducing tariffs will cause them next year to import some 70,000 U.S. automobiles to Mexico as opposed to about 7,000 this year. So it opens up the ability for the United States to take goods and sell them into the Mexican market, which causes prosperity to come to the United States.
Well, it also causes prosperity to come to Mexico, makes it a large player, and then we benefit. That's the long-range theory,
That's right? That's right.
But in the meantime, we might lose jobs here.
There is some thought that there will be some leakage of jobs. There's been a lot of numbers thrown around, and some of them have been exaggerated. Most people think that over the 10 years, there will be a net job gain, small in the United States, maybe a couple of 100,000. But the opponents say that maybe 500,000 U.S. jobs will leak overseas. Most of them will be low-skill manufacturing jobs in textile, ceramics, glassware manufacturing, not high-skill jobs in the semiconductor business, communications business, the kinds of things that American workers do best.
All right, Tyler, thank you very much.
Thank you.
18 minutes after, coming up next, we will update you on that California town that was told that it may have an earthquake this week when Good Morning America continues.
Minutes now after the hour, and we go back to Parkfield, California this morning, where the scientists have been predicting a major earthquake and predicting it would come in the early part of this week. The town is especially vulnerable, of course, because it sits directly on the San Andreas Fault, and our science editor, Michael Gillen, is out in Parkfield. I gather nothing so far, Michael. After the tremor this weekend, the big quake hasn't come.
Yeah, nothing, Charlie. You know, and we're down to the last 2 minutes of the 72-hour quake watch that started on Sunday. That's when they had the 4.8 earthquake that started this whole thing. There were about 20 or 30 minor aftershocks after that, and then the earth started quieting down around Monday, around noontime. There was one little magnitude 1 quake yesterday morning, and that's it. So the earth's quieting down for who knows how long now.
So this shows, A, that all these predictions of earthquakes are flat out wrong, or B, it just shows that predicting earthquakes is even more perilous than we thought.
I think B. And, I talked to the scientists yesterday. They are disappointed, but they're not quitting. You know what it's like at a roulette game where you keep betting on the same number over and over again? It may take longer than you think for that number to come up, but when it comes up, you know your chips are on it, you're going to win. Well, these scientists have invested 8 years and $2 million in the equipment here. They know it's only a matter of time, but when it hits, they're going to win, and they're going to learn a whole lot about the events that lead up to an earthquake, and they can apply that to Los Angeles, San Francisco, where a lot more is at stake there than here when an earthquake hits.
I mentioned yesterday that earthquake predicting and earthquake research is a particular of particular interest to you. Have you learned anything more on this trip?
A lot. First of all, the San Andreas Fault. Every time I come here to visit it, it's a crazy creature, very unpredictable. But the people here are also incredible. They have a sense of humor about this, and they can afford to, because not a whole lot is at stake here when the earthquake hits. Across the way, the cafe has a sign that says, if it shakes and if it quakes, get under a table and eat your steak. And here there's a sign that says, sleep here when it happens. Well, we did, and it didn't.
All right, thanks, Michael. We'll be back.
I love you. Champagne is now being served on the after.
This is Elmo on Sesame Street. Good morning, America.
That's Elmo. For all you Sesame Street fans, good morning, everyone. I'm Joan London.
I'm Charles Gibson. It's Wednesday, November 17th.
And ahead in this half hour, a big bird's eye view, we can say, of what youngsters, and let's not kid ourselves, the show has a lot of adult fans as well, can expect this season on Sesame Street. Among other things, a new singing group called the Squirrels. And they're also going to have Ruth Buzzy. Yes, Ruth Buzzy is also coming back. It's all part of a big, big 25th anniversary celebration on this educational TV classic. They're going to do a Nutcracker suite.
The Squirrels?
Yes.
I see. Well, it's nice that they're 25 years old. I don't know what celebration
doesn't
you could
look
have.
that age.
What are they going to do? We're going to feature the letter L this year? I mean, I don't know what Sesame Street does. It's always a terrific show. Also, Ed, we're going to be talking about the cost of NAFTA. Just to look at the headlines this morning in the New York tabloids, $7.5 million a vote, referring to what the president has had to promise in order to get the undecideds. The other tabloid in New York saying, pass the pork. A lot of deals made in the last couple of days to get the president votes on NAFTA, and so we're going to talk about the cost of this package. Congress does vote on this highly controversial agreement today, and the question is, what has President Clinton promised in order to get the votes he needs? And we'll find out what's at stake for him if NAFTA passes or if it's defeated. Right now, Morton Dean has the news. Morton?
Thank you, Charlie. It is a Capitol Hill cliffhanger. The push for NAFTA votes is moving into its final frantic hours. The House of Representatives will spend most of today debating the trade agreement. The vote is expected sometime this evening. The latest ABC News head count gives pro-NAFTA forces 213 votes. 218 are needed to pass. 28 House members say they are undecided, although some may be secretly committed to one side or the other. The government is making a major change in the way it calculates its official jobless rate. The reason officials want to change a built-in bias against women. ABC's Stephen Ogg has that story and more in his morning economic report.
Good morning. For the first time in more than 25 years, the government's changing the questions it asks in its monthly employment survey. The result? Starting early next year, the changes will make the unemployment numbers higher, perhaps half a percentage point or more. Why the difference? Well, until now, interviewers have been asking men, what were you doing last week, working or something else? But they've been asking women, what were you doing last week, keeping house or something else? Now men and women are being asked the same question. Last week, did you do any work for pay or profit? The result?
We're picking up a lot more unemployed women. And we think that that has to do with changes in the questionnaire that lead women who may be looking for casual or part-time work to be more likely to report that.
The new system starts next February, and for a few months the figures may not be very reliable. And speaking of unemployment, Baxter International cutting 4,500 jobs, 7% of its workforce, over the next 5 years. Baxter is the world's biggest producer of healthcare products and services. The job cut is the healthcare industry's biggest this year, as it gets ready for reform. The industry plans cuts totaling nearly 29,000. Finally, the $10 billion fight over who buys Paramount Communications, now in a state court in Delaware, where Paramount's incorporated. QVC Network, a cable shopping programmer, asked the court to eliminate Paramount's anti-takeover defenses. QVC says they prevented from completing its hostile takeover of Paramount and give an unfair advantage to Viacom, which has agreed on a friendly takeover. But no matter what the judge rules, the case still goes to the Delaware Supreme Court. And that's a look at the economy.
General Motors and Toyota on the same team in Japan. One report says it could happen. According to the Associated Press, a deal's in the works where Toyota would buy 20,000 American-made GM cars and then sell them in Japan under the Toyota name. If the deal comes off, it would be the first of its kind. The Senate has overwhelmingly approved legislation outlawing violent acts outside abortion clinics. The vote 69-30. The bill would make it a federal crime to block access to abortion clinics or threaten the clinic's doctors or patients. The House takes up a similar measure tomorrow. Finally, it's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a tightrope walker. Ian Ashpole tiptoed across a thin steel bar balanced between two hot air balloons, more than 11,000 feet above the English countryside. He broke the world record for high wire acts, and luckily, he had a parachute to break his fall on his second attempt across the wire. Which, Spencer, brings me to my favorite admonition for life. Always fold your own parachute. Repeat that, Spencer.
Always fold your own parachute. Thank you very much, Mort, because forecasting weather is a bit like walking a tightrope, except that I don't fall off. Let's take a look at today's projected high temperatures. It's going to be...
This is something that we need to take up, and
Senator Barbara Boxer is pushing a bill that would prevent anyone from coming off the street and reading your DMV records.
Whether we're a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, pro-choice, anti-choice, stupid, smart, white, black, rich, poor, gay, straight, what's the difference? We have a fundamental right to privacy. And what we're saying is the way the laws are now in most of the states, someone who's a total Looney Tune can pick up the phone and with a few bucks find out where you live.
Now, just last night, the Senate voted to add Senator Boxer's DMV legislation as an amendment to the crime bill. We'll see what happens as the bill moves through Congress.
Now, let me get this straight. It's for sale? So if I have a couple of dollars, I can call up and say I've got the money and I've got the license plate. You give me the information?
You see a foxy lady you like driving down the street, you can find out her address, her name, and maybe more information about her. It is scary.
That is absolutely frightening. How is that young lady you talked to? Is she all right now?
She's all right. She never thought about this issue, and now she's an advocate for privacy. It struck her so hard. Back to the states selling these DMV lists, I just wanted to let you know that it really started because of direct marketers. The states make more money selling these lists to marketing groups than they do to individuals. The crazies, the loonies, those are just a few people. The big money is made when the states sell this to direct marketers. Think about what they can learn about you, your height, your weight, what kind of car you drive, which says something about your income. Virginia alone made $18 million selling DMV lists.
Amazing. Amazing series. Great stuff. Thanks, Hattie. Mark?
For a video cassette of this week's series, Who's Watching, you can call 1-800-542-5621. The cost is $23.45. That includes shipping and handling. Harry?
22 minutes until the hour. Next, where will you be in 3 years? George Burns hopes you'll be at his birthday party. His 100th birthday party. Stay tuned.
There's no money in dying. I gotta stay alive. I passed out, I lose a fortune.
What makes all the software you want to run fall into place?
Years in advance, especially a performer who's 97 years old.
But who says George Burns is just any performer? Yesterday in Los Angeles, comedy's elder statesman signed a contract with Caesar's Palace for January 20th, 1996. That'll be his 100th birthday. And amid all the hoopla, he proved he can still play the audience.
Thank you very much, and it's nice to be here. At 97, it's nice to be any place. The 20th of this month, I'll be 98. And I'm going to play Caesar's Palace when I'm 100 years old. I hope Caesar's is still there. I don't believe in dying. I died in Altoona. I died in Schenectady. I'm not going to die again. No, there's no money in dying. I got to stay alive. I passed out. I lose a fortune. I'm going to stick around as long as I want to stick around. I love what I do for a living. That's terribly important. You love what you do, you stay around.
He had planned to play London's Palladium on his 100th birthday. Now he'll play there a week later. By the way, tickets for the Caesar show are already on sale.
It's a great story. He belongs to a country club out in Los Angeles. Has been a member for years and years and years. And they passed a little law in the little rule in the country club that there would be no cigar smoking indoors. He objected, so they rewrote the rule to say no cigar smoking indoors for anybody under 97 years old.
I've told you this before. Remember the Gracie, the show he had with Gracie? When I was a kid, that was the first show that a guy on TV turned and talked to you. Remember, she'd leave the room and he'd turn to the camera. So, what do you think? And I'm answering. I think it's cool. You know, the first time I thought he knew that I was sitting right there watching it. He's a funny guy.
He's being inducted into the Comedy Hall of Fame next week, and he has a date.
He has a date? Who?
Sharon Stone. Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone. Unless it's someone with the same name, like a little 86-year-old woman.
No,
who's
I
also
don't think
Sharon
so.
Stone? No.
And Sharon should watch out, because he's a hot guy.
We have told this story before, but he smoked cigars, and one of the first times I interviewed him, I was going to get him a box of really good cigars. And so I asked his manager, and he says, no, El Producto. 10 a day.
10 a day. All right, it's 17 before the hour. Hey, hey, don't go away. Davy Jones remembers the Monkees coming up on CBS this morning.
Right now, but thank you both very much.
Mr. and Mrs. Bridge and Howard's End are back with another highly anticipated film. It is called The Remains of the Day. I don't usually speak out of turn, but I loved this movie. Now, do you agree, Joel Siegel?
More than agree.
Okay,
I loved
good.
it more than you did. Last year, Howard's End earned 9 Oscar nominations. Remains of the day, yes, the same writer, producer, director, the famous Merchant Ivory team, even the same stars, Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson. This, too, an amazing adaptation of a great novel, and could earn that many Oscar nominations. It's also doing surprisingly well at the box office, not just on the coast, but in Memphis and Fresno and Tucson, I think because Howard's End paved the way.
The same museum-quality detail, the same fascinating view of British upper-class life, call this Howard's End from the other end, the butler's point of view. Anthony Hopkins, who each morning irons the Times for his lord and master James Fox, a blithering fop who asks Hopkins to tell his godson the facts of life,